Hey everybody, how y'all are? I want to talk about something. Yeah. I've been posting to different when people are talking about their guides, when there's this a need to use this stuff, and maybe I need to explain a little more. Back when I was a kid, things like cross-cut sleds, shuttle jigs, stuff like that. That was all kind of like for industry. And then we started seeing like popular mechanics, popular science. Every once in a while would show a project, and that was before the woodworking magazine came out. And so my dad, he liked the idea of that cross-cutting sled, and kind of a couple other ones that he thought were a pretty good idea. But he wasn't real fond of the idea of using hardwood. Because even though his cast iron table saw was old, it was sharp. And it would cut into what we consider hardwood oak, stuff like that, unless it's really, really old oak. And he said, for something like that to be on the money and all this kind of stuff, it needs to be solid. And back then, the only thing that was solid was either steel or aluminum. And so he went around. He actually found guide rails that they made for his crafting table saw at about $8 a pair. And he was like, oh no, there's got to be something cheaper than that. So he went to the local Ace Hardware, and back then that was the place to go. And he talked to one of the owners over there, and they said, "Oh yeah, we got something like that." And they gave him a piece of steel that was 20 foot long. They were nice enough to cut it in half for us, and we took it home. And that's what we made our rails out of. We cut them, we drilled them. We fit them. Fortunately, they fit. They drop right into the guides. And the cross-cut sled that my dad had, that we made, was probably 10 years old. And it was still cutting true and solid, but that's all it was, a 90-degree cut, and that's it. And he made it a lot bit larger, and we'd be able to pull it, hold it, support it, and use it let it double kind of as a panel cutter for doing like door inserts and things like that to ensure they're square. So he got double duty out of one appliance. And he kept telling me, he said, one day they're going to come up with a plastic that's going to eliminate all this, so you're going to be able to do this. And then there are times that he'd talk about different kinds of tools that we used to look at that were astronomical. And he would say, one day you will be able to have it, you will be able to afford to have this in your shop for nothing. You won't be doing stuff by hand anymore, which is true. And I still do a lot of stuff by hand, although I try to avoid it when possible. But everything we did back then was by hand. And the only actual saw that we had the table saw, which was an 8-inch, and we had a jigsaw. The drills were old metal case ones, so that when you're, like for example, we didn't have a drill press. That was unheard of. We couldn't afford one of those. So everything was done by hand. We made different boxes to put this drill in, so it would drill straight, so it would go down. Drilling all that steel like that, you'd have to stop and let the motor inside that steel case cool down before you can drill some more. Now, there's all kinds of stories like that. Anyway, but then we come up to HDPE. This is good stuff. Over here, in the Texas Gulf Coast, the humidity fluctuates so bad that you can set up a set of rails out of hardwood, put them in there, and it works great today. It'll rain tomorrow and they'll swell up and you won't be able to move that thing. I've run into that on the first one I tried, and that's why I ended up going to HDPE. And it's good stuff. Pick it up, go in, it's solid, it hits every time. Where you put it, if you screw it in right and hold it, or fix it right, it will be there. It will stay there, it will be 100%. If you have, if the thing slides like crazy, it will slide like crazy tomorrow. Well, getting it to slide like crazy is a challenge. Yes, this stuff does machine well. Yes, you can use tools on it. Yes, you can sand it. Yes, you can make it smooth. You can plane it. You can do all that stuff like you can, almost like wood. The thing is, you have to remember, HDPE has a higher melting point. It melts at 350 degrees. So if you take it and you cut a piece like this out of a 4-foot sheet, that's not real good. By the time you get close to the end, that blade gotten hot enough that it may start to melt. And it affects your cut. Most likely what will happen is you'll end up with some really nasty strings. This also doesn't chip, like, make dust. Well, it makes dust, but it's a different kind of dust. And it leaves strings all over the place. In your saw, on your saw, under your saw, around the saw. I'm going to show you some pictures. When I did these, and I thank God that it happened that way, these fit my new Delta, which is a good deal. Because I had cut up almost 3/4 of this very expensive sheet that I bought for this for making sleds and stuff like that, and I cut it to fit my old Craftsman saw. But now I'm using, of course, with the new Delta. And I'm gonna show you a few pictures that I had taken of the aftermath. It was about 2 months before I quit finding plastic pieces around the shop. Then when I put it in, and it didn't dawn on me about this, but if you have an Incra miter guide, gauge, or miter deal of any kind, it's adjustable. It's set up so that you turn these little washers, the screws go in these little washers, and these little washers will expand, and they tighten up to your guide channel. And depending on how you adjust it, you can adjust how tight you want it, how loose you want it, but you get it to the point that you got zero side-to-side movement, and it stays accurate all the way through. Well, that stuff they're using is HDPE. And when you take this bar, you drill a bunch of holes in it, and you got them countersunk, and you screwing it into into the bottom of your rail. By the time that you get all these set and tight, you're going to end up with a little bulge in each one. When I cut this so that it is maybe got 1/1000th of end play, if it's that much. I mean, these are tight there. They're not tight, can't move, but there's like no movement, side movement on them at all. Well, when you screw them in and you tighten up like that, next thing you know, you've expanded enough that it won't even fit in the slot. So you got to trim all this down. Make sure that they bring this back down to parallel on both sides. Make sure that these two are parallel. Trim them all out. It's easy to do. It's just time consuming. The first time that I did it, I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't just get myself to figure out how I'm going to do this. So it took me 2 days to get it straightened out. This second time, I did a little different. I came from the top down and screwed into it. And I don't know why, for some reason, it's still, I had some movement and all that. And I went to put it in, yeah, it didn't want to fit. But it didn't take much to get it back into alignment. I spent maybe, 2 hours trimming it. Trimming on the sides a little bit, and doing this, that, and the other. The Wood Whisperer had a good tip when he did his, and he did on an HDPE, and he said, and I mentioned it in the other video, paint this with a marker. And if you've been using it a while, it might be a little gouged up, chewed up a little bit, because you're scraping and everything. So get a good marker that you can, that it'll flow and it'll cover it. Paint them, then set them in the guides and move them back and forth, and you will see where they're rubbing. Most probably, usually what happens is when you're down to where you got them in there and it's moving pretty good, but it's just a little sticky. Usually what happens is you've actually beveled it instead of going straight back. And so you need to thin out the top part a little bit. That's a common thing. Will I keep pushing HDPE for guide rails? Heck yeah. Am I going to keep using HDPE for guide rails? Heck yeah. But I wanted everybody to understand that these are a lot more work than just using hardwood. But it seems like when it comes to woodworking and stuff like this, the more work you put into it, it seems like the more you appreciate it, the better it looks, the better it works, and the longer it lasts. So go ahead and make the investment. Try some of this HDPE stuff. Just plan on spending 2 or 3 days cleaning your saw. And now that I got that new saw with that dust collection and everything that's in it, I have to call up Delta to find out how to take that dust collection thing apart so I can get all that stuff out of there. But you know what? That's part of the game. So I hope that you found this interesting and educational, and I didn't try to scare you away from HDPE, but I wanted to prepare you for what you're going to look into. So this way your planned couple evening sled project turns into a week and a half because you're doing all this fitting and all that. That's okay. It's worth it. And it's going to happen. So anyway, thanks. Y'all have a good day.